Algorithms are finicky bastards, and so even if you're subscribed to me, even if you've clicked the bell and gone through all the other rigmarole, even if you follow me on social media, you might not see what I'm up to. So I have a mailing list. Postmortem-studios-fan-group, which is a bit of a mouthful, but all you have to do is navigate your way there once at groups.google.com and subscribe, and then once a month you will get an email with everything that I've done in the previous month, and isn't that special? Hello lovelies. It's always a toss-up on what to talk about on YouTube these days with my relatively limited amount of time for making videos on weekends while I finish Whitechester, but I was struck over the last couple of days by something and feel the need to talk it out to an imaginary listener. So because I was on a medication break, I took a semi-break from most social media for a couple of weeks, which doesn't seem like much, but then there's the trend down and the trend up on meds. And I don't know whether it just lowered my tolerance for bullshit stepping away for a while, weakened my acclimation to the kind of bullshit. But I've been on a bit of a tear, particularly on Twitter, for the last couple of days. I really am wondering whether that time away screwed up my tolerance, because it's just flabbergasting how dishonest, hypocritical, and shitty the discourses are about anything, particularly on Twitter, but elsewhere. And this wouldn't have bothered me before, but after this period of being away, it does really bother me. And two of the things that really piss me off the most are hypocrisy and a lack of consistency in people. Right? I do my best to be principled and consistent, and I don't think it's entirely unreasonable to expect other people to have consistent, thought-out positions on things if they're going to fight and argue about them. So just yesterday, just in relation to discourse around the creative enterprise of role-playing games, we had numerous arseholes going off dishonestly about the character background discussion that we had in the previous video. So, for example, my saying, don't weigh down your games master with interminable purple prose describing an epic fantasy novel of your character's background, because that's what you're going to do in the game, somehow got translated to lol, you're a bad games master, because you want people to be concise and to extract the useful information for you. Yeah, that's a dishonest discussion. And then there was some racist cunt going off about some racist game that you wouldn't name, wouldn't really describe what the issue was, wouldn't offer any examples or engage at all, really, when I was trying to extract from him what he was talking about and giving examples of games that aren't racist, but which do exclude certain ethnotypes from them, like Rokugan, Legend of the Five Rings, right? It's set in a closed-off, xenophobic fantasy Japan, right? So it excludes, say, Caucasians, just by virtue of being what it is and what it's based upon. It's not a racist decision, right? So a game could be set in, I don't know, 13th century Prague or something, some historical analogue to that, and would implicitly or explicitly write off people from non-white ethnic backgrounds, and that wouldn't be racist. It would just be presenting the world in the right way and putting the focus where it should be, right? But it just absolutely would not offer an example of what they were talking about, point out which game they were talking about, or anything. Just throw out what is a very serious accusation of racism, and which then later spread to accusing the entire RPG industry of being racist. And their entire argument seems to hinge on the fact that they had brown skin and therefore couldn't be questioned, which is quite a racist assumption. And that because I was white, nothing I had to say on the topic possibly had any worth whatsoever, which is another extremely racist sort of assumption. Right? Broader than that, we've got people making content but dissing the people that primarily consume the content that they produce, then wondering why they're failing, whether that's anime or Netflix adaptations or whatever else it might be. I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me that if you're making something that's really loved by an audience, whether it be a Lord of the Rings spin-off or a live-action version of an anime, you should probably know what you're talking about. You should probably value the content that you're translating, and you probably shouldn't alienate your audience. On more serious topics, people are massively politically illiterate, to the point where you have to explain basics like what socialism is, what liberalism is, what a republic is, to people who are willfully ignorant on these subjects. And it's the same with scientific illiteracy when it comes to things like vaccines or anything else. And racial discourse, you've got people claiming to be anti-racist while being explicitly anti-white and producing content and shows and things that are explicitly racist towards white people, and then go to the point of redefining racism to excuse their own behaviour. And it's the same with gender discourse. Right? We live in a time without nuance, where it doesn't matter that I support trans people in their struggle or that I donate money to help them get gender affirmation surgery or whatever. If I just have the tiniest bit of concern that maybe there is an element of social contagion because I lived through the sudden eruption of bi people and self-harming that went on in the 90s, which was largely down to social contagion and certain expectations and so on. And I think there may be an element of that at work here, which doesn't take away from people who genuinely have gender dysphoria issues or whatever else. It's just an element of nuance that maybe we ought to be a little bit careful, just a little bit, while also being thoroughly supportive of people while they figure this out and decide what they want to do. But you're not allowed nuance in this world. In political discourse, the left only seems to be able to scream fascist at people as if that was some sort of argument, and the right only seems able to scream paedophile at people as though that was some sort of argument. It's just nothing. And what's frustrating is that when I try to be reasonable, when I try to have nuanced conversations about any of these topics, that doesn't get any traction. But if I lose my rag a little, or indulge in a little bit of clickbait, you know, it works. Like yesterday's video title, or that article that I am perhaps most famous for, unfortunately. You know, these are the things that get traction. Making things worse gets what you're doing seen, but it often doesn't get what you're doing understood or even read. It just gets it clicked on, and that's a problem. It's just so fucking disheartening and annoying. And I don't think expecting people not to be hypocrites, while allowing that everyone makes mistakes occasionally, I don't think that's bad. And I don't think expecting people to be consistent with their principles is bad, necessarily. But here we are. "Rrrr," said the grinder as it chewed its way through Alice, from the crown of her head all the way down to her toes. It ate the lot of her, unfussy, snout to tail, and cleared its plate. It gnashed its way through her dress, her pinafore, her shoes, and her unmentionables. It chewed her hair, devoured her scalp, gobbled up her arms, wolfed down her legs, gorged itself on her torso, noshed on her skin, and gulped her down without so much as a burp to show for it.
Well, I look at it myself as the beginning, really, of an exploration. That's the reason we're exploring. You don't know what you'll run into on an exploration. What the sky looks like, what the stars look like. Do they still twinkle, or are they a steady light when you get outside the atmosphere?